baby, but I don't care.
Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org and this show in particular. Correct me if I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mayor Gary Bassett.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
And before the mics went live, I was just asking, is there like an honorary thing, that salutation, like the Honorable Gary Bassett or something? But there's nothing that...
Yeah, just call me Gary. We fine.
Yeah, Gary.
I like that.
All right, good. Also, before we went on, we were talking about your kids who both graduated Rhinebeck.
Yep.
I'm guessing they started at CLS and went all the way through. And they're both adopted.
Yes, our son is now 31, adopted from Guatemala. And our daughter, who's 28, is adopted from Paraguay.
Okay.
And they were both adopted as infants and were raised here in Rhinebeck.
And did you go through some sort of adoption?
Yeah, international adoption
agency?
Yeah, we worked through an agency, and that agency has connections, and you work through those connections in whatever country. We used the same agency for both of them.
Okay.
In Guatemala and in Paraguay. It's quite an experience.
Yeah. And so how old were they when y'all met?
Our son was 16 months.
Okay.
And our daughter was 6 months. But we actually made 2 trips to Paraguay because that's a requirement. So we first met her when she was a month and a half old.
Wow.
And then you have to come back, and then you go back down and pick them and go through the rest of the process.
That's just what an amazing process to go through.
Yeah, you're working with an agency here in America who you got to put a lot of trust in people.
Right.
That your money, and we were actually working with the same agency prior, and we had an assignment, so to speak, from Chile, and that adoption fell through because the agency that they were working with in South America was actually advertising a child for adoption, but there really was no child.
Right.
And they sold that child basically, or put that child out to 12 different people and collected the money and then disappeared. So we lost one. We lost one in the process. But then it all worked out, I think, for the right reasons, that we ended up going to Guatemala in a time to get our son. Which was a wonderful experience to visit that country and tour old Guatemala and Guatemala City and the ruins and all that kind of stuff. Is truly amazing. But it was, down and back in a week and a half, and you're there.
Have they been back to Guatemala and Paraguay?
No. Our son says he was abandoned by his country and has no interest, but our daughter has showed a lot of interest, and we're hoping to go back with her to Paraguay at some time.
And was it
Asuncion, which is the capital of Paraguay, is where we were with her.
Okay. And was it easy once you got there to meet them and bring them back to the U.S.?
For our son, it was pretty straightforward. It was, pretty well organized and that kind of stuff. But from day one on our daughter, from the first trip to the last trip, it was met with peril. All right. And the first trip going down for our daughter, the agency didn't show up when we landed at the airport. So we had to find our way around, find our hotel. But it's all, Norm, this is all serendipitous because things happen for a reason. And for our daughter, we ended up asking the airline, American Airlines, where they go. And they said, we go there. So we were able to get a room. And that worked out well. When you did the first trip, you go through interrogations and psychic exams. And you meet all sorts of people that you have to get their sign off on to do the adoption.
Right.
And then they tell you to go away. And then you go away for a period of time. And then you have to come back. And then when you go back, you go through another set of series of interviews and so forth to be able to finalize the adoption process. And it was on our second trip with our daughter where basically all hell broke loose. And what I mean was there was an election going on. And there's judges that run the country of Paraguay. And we were in the capital, Paraguay, Asuncion. And these judges were running on a anti-adoption campaign.
Why is it that prevalent there?
It was, but they were running on a campaign that not only America but Europe was also adopting their children and selling their body parts, and that's what they were advertising.
Egads.
So as a result, adoptions were being shut down left and right. We had friends that we met there. They would raid a hotel at nighttime and come in and take all the kids away from you. they would
The government.
the government would, you'd go to the airport to leave, they just snap them out of your hands and leave, and put you on the plane, and that's how it went. But we had a trouble with, we couldn't get into the embassy to get our exit visas to get out. I mean, it was just, the embassy shut down because it was civil riot going on.
So you must have been afraid for your own lives.
It was a scary time for us being in a strange country. But as I said, things work out for a reason. We ended up on this first trip going to a hotel that we weren't supposed to go to because it wasn't one of the normal places to go for adoptions. And we ended up going to a hotel where the Marines were brought in to provide security for the embassy.
The U.S. Marines.
The United States Marines.
Nice.
And when those Marines came in, we ended up basically, we had our daughter, and we were hanging out for weeks at a time here trying to get out of the country. And we got to know them because we were able to basically party with them when they were off shift. And they were a great bunch of people. And they got us into the embassy through embassy connections that they were doing. And we were able to get our visas and get our visas stamped, and our daughter get the visa so we could get out of the country.
Us being you and your wife and
For
your
both
daughter.
of us, yeah. And then that's where, then now you have to leave. And so, but when we were going through this whole process in terms of working with trying to get our visas and get everything out, and you didn't know what was going to happen. We were afraid to leave the hotel.
Right.
And we'd love to get out and tour the country and see what's going on. But the Marines said, don't worry. Don't worry. If anything happens, we will get you. And you got to thank God bless America, man.
That's got to be comforting.
Very
Having a
powerful.
Marine tell you that, yeah.
Very, very powerful that they have that kind of mindset that says,
Right.
we will get you no matter where. All right. And so anyways, they got us through the embassy, and then we were able to make connections. Now we had to leave the country. And I'm condensing this down.
It's sounding a little like Casablanca.
I could talk forever on this, but I'm going to condense it down. But now you had to get to the airport, and the next thing was they were confiscating everything when you got to the airport because they knew, right? And you have to go through a series of like 7 checkouts to just get out of the country, and we knew we would never make it. So through friends of friends down there that they knew, we were able to get a nondescript van, go to the airport, park at the back part of the parking lot in the airport, and then we're waiting there for a person that will come to work with us to get us out, to get us through the checkout.
No way.
Yeah, no, this
some
is true.
person you never met.
This is a true story, And it turns out the woman that helped us, she was from Chicago, and she was down there with her grandmother, and so she knew people who knew people. So she was the primary person then, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, here comes this guy who we had met on the first trip down, who was a policeman. And we said, we're done. He's now coming to, we're caught. Right here. Right. We recognized this guy. We knew who he was. He knew who we were. Turns out he was working for them as well.
Double agent.
Because everything could be...
Make a pretty good movie. Have you ever written this down?
No, I haven't. And so then... what you got to do is you got to put trust in your faith into somebody, and that guy, we gave him all the money we had, which was hundreds of dollars,
right?
And we gave him all of our paperwork, and we were told to wait. And then this gentleman, God bless him, he went through the checkouts, and it must have been an hour, 2 hours later, he's coming back, his head's hanging down. Right. And we're like, it ain't going to happen. Right. And he comes and he explains to the woman that we were with, that was our interpreter as well. From Chicago. Yeah. She said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to follow him. You're not going to stop. You're not going to look. You're not going to do anything. And he's going to put you on that plane. He's going to stay with you until that plane is ready to leave. And then he'll leave. He'll make sure that you're out of the country. And he did. He kept his word. We had to go through this lines and lines and lines, but we never stopped.
Right.
Just talk to anybody or get any paperwork or anything else. And he walked us into the plane, stayed there with us. We had all of our paperwork, which is really all we really care about.
Right.
And when the doors were closing, he jumped out the door. And we landed, and we flew back to the United States. And the only thing we lost was our luggage. And we have a beautiful daughter.
Small price to pay for a beautiful daughter.
Absolutely.
And so have you ever been in touch with that guy or the woman from Chicago?
No, we have no way. We really didn't have any way to reach out and contact him.
Right, right.
know. But we'd love to go back. Our daughter has showed interest, and we would love to go back to Asuncion and
Right.
just. It's a wonderful, wonderful city down there.
Yeah.
And we met a lot of Americans while we were there. Do you know there outside of Asuncion, there's a city called Philadelphia?
No.
Yeah. There's a city called Philadelphia, which were people in World War II who left the States because they didn't believe in fighting.
Right.
And they formed their own government in their own city, and you have a replica of. They're all big ranchers,
Right.
and down there, and they have their own Liberty Bell,
Nice.
right, and their own and everything else. And
That's
so
hilarious.
So we actually got to see part of that as well, and say, wow, this is really wild.
Yeah.
So, anyways, it all worked out, but you got to think, you got to put your faith and trust in people, and if you do that, it's going to work.
Right. Well, I love that attitude. I'm just going to segue straight to this. Do you bring that attitude to your job as mayor?
Absolutely.
You got to put your faith in people, and if you do, it'll work out.
If you don't, you got to work with people.
Right.
Here's the way I approach government. I approach it as a standpoint that you got to talk to people. And you got to talk to people and find out what's going on. And so I like to form what I call partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
I form partnerships with, Denise George at the hospital, Andy Imperati at the fairgrounds, Albert Cousins at the school, Yvette Barrion at Astor, because they all have a major role. The chamber, the Village of Rhinebeck Chamber of Commerce, right? We're on speed dial with each other,
Right.
working together, helping the businesses survive. So if you meet and talk, you find out there's a lot of common ground. And when you find the common grounds, and then you can start solving problems. And that's the way I approach it, listen to people, listen to what the problems are, because I really believe at the end of the day, it's my job to respond to the constituents, but also be a problem solver.
Right. But you can't respond to all the constituents all the time.
No, but you know what? I have an open door policy.
Right.
And you come and you knock on the door. If I'm there and I got time, come on in.
Right.
That's the way it works.
And are you Democrat or Republican?
I'm a Democrat.
Okay. And there's some group of sort of a splinter group of Democrats. I see your wife behind you rolling her eyes. What's your common ground with them?
Well, you have to have a common ground, but we really don't share a lot of common ground with them, but I think we're trying to define our space that we all can work in.
Right.
And if we can define that space and work in, whatever venue that they have and the venue that we have, life goes on, right?
Right.
Because I think there's plenty of room for everybody. And so why not?
There is, and also the voters ultimately decide.
Right.
And
So there's plenty of room.
this group, I forget what they call themselves, were running against you, or were.
Well,
And
they put up candidates against, yes.
Right.
Right. But that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't care. Let anybody's, if they want this job, please come. Go for it. Apply or whatever. Go through the process. But I'm going to tell you, I love what I do.
You seem to love what you do.
Really love working with people and working to solve the problem, because you never know. Every day you go into the office, you know what's going to be there.
Right.
You go in with a plan of what you want to accomplish that day, but things could spin 180 and now you're off in another direction.
Right.
Solving with it, because we have a great partnership with the town, and we work closely. I work closely with Elizabeth Spinzia in the town of Rhinebeck, which is great. Because we have to work together.
Right.
And so it's fortunate that we can, and when there's a common problem, we can meet and we can discuss and we can figure out how to move forward to make that happen. And it's the same way with working with everybody else.
Right. Well, I'll drink to that.
Yeah, that's.
You brought some cocktails for us to enjoy. Now, what is it that we have here?
So it's an Aperol Spritz, and I'm going to tell you it's compliments of Amsterdam and Fletcher from Amsterdam.
Fletcher William Tingle III
Fletcher
who was
was-
here about a month ago.
Correct.
And did not bring a drink then, and he's making up for it tonight.
So yeah,
Thank you, Fletcher.
Yeah. So this is compliments of Amsterdam and
Great.
Fletcher.
Shall I pour? Do you want to pour?
No, you pour. You're
Okay. Who wants one? Yeah, everybody says why not?
Yeah.
Jack?
They're not physical glasses that we can clink, but
Okay.
glasses with ice and a nice cool drink for these hot days that we're having, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You believe this weather?
What's that?
Instead of talking about the Yankees, let's talk about the weather.
Oh, well.
Isn't this extreme what we're having?
Today seemed pretty nice. I mean, it's sort of gone from unbearable to mostly bearable for me. And I loved last night's thunderstorm.
The skies were amazing.
Pass this over. And cheers.
Cheers.
Let me say this. I usually start by saying this to every elected official I meet. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
For working to the greater good of this community that we all love so much.
You know what? This wasn't a plan. It was really not. I didn't have this plan 30 years ago that I would be sitting in this chair. But
Right.
I did a lot of work with the town when we moved here on many committees, and I started working with the village and stuff. And then when we moved into the village, there was an opportunity, and I got appointed to the board. And then from there, I decided it was something that I would like to do.
And where did you move here from?
Originally, well, from Wisconsin, Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
And what in the world were you doing in Eau Claire?
Yeah, I've been blessed to have 3 great careers.
Uh-huh.
One was in IBM. And
Okay.
so I was an IBM'er for 36 years, and I did a startup company for IBM out in Eau Claire developing supercomputers.
Wow.
Yeah.
For what uses?
Well, at that time we were creating the next biggest thing,
Right.
right, in terms of supercomputing in the world. And so we had contracts with Department of Defense, Boeing for development of airplanes, ECMWF for the weather over in Europe.
70s, 80s?
This was late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Yep. And so I spent 6 years, but then that was a troublesome time for IBM. It was a troublesome time for a lot of technologies. And in end of 92, beginning of 93, we had missed our marketing window, and everything has a time and a place.
Yeah.
And IBM was running out of cash at the time. And so the decision was made to close the business. So I actually stayed there and shut down that business. And it was unfortunate because we had 300 of the brightest people in the country
That sounds like
working on a supercomputer.
sad and lonely job, shutting down a business.
It was hard. It was very hard.
And then did you move here with IBM?
So then, yes, I moved to Kingston was starting up a new supercomputing venture
Right.
with new technology into the parallel computing. And so I came here to get started on that. And I spent most of the rest of my career working on parallel computing and the supercomputing. You remember the machine Watson?
Yeah,
The chess machine?
sure.
So
What,
part of the
Deep Blue or
Deep Blue. Part of the business I was in was developing this interconnection to the parallel. So how they talk to one another and how they communicate, which is called a switch in today's, like what you'd see, and developing that technology for those supercomputers. And that business is still running today.
Right. Now I'm just thinking about Deep Blue. I mean, there was a famous match with Kasparov or somebody, one of the big world champion chess players.
But that was run by research. My job was to develop the architecture.
But the human, I think, won year after year after year. And now I'm thinking about AI, and I got a hunch the human will never beat a computer again. You don't know.
I have no comment.
No comment. Now, and you got into this because you studied engineering.
Yeah, I'm an electrical engineer by trade.
An electrical engineer.
Yep.
So
I started in Endicott, New York.
Okay. What in the world is in Endicott, New York?
Well, that's where IBM was started from,
Okay.
in Endicott. And I was hired up there out of a 2-year associate degree school and went to work on their machines.
Okay.
And then from there went into getting my bachelor's and my master's through SUNY Binghamton, and then graduate. And while I was working, and then evolving into more of a management structure and developing the first generation of parallel computing in Endicott.
What is parallel computing?
So parallel computing is when you, rather than having one big processor that does everything, you have a lot of little processors.
Okay.
Think about it. You take a lot of PCs and gang them all together, and you have stacks and stacks and stacks of PCs, and they're all working together, but they're all in parallel solving the same problem.
Right.
So it's much faster, and you can get a lot more done.
That's funny. Yeah. So you graduated college when?
So I was working and going to school, so it was all into the 80s that I finally graduated from SUNY Binghamton.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was married, having a family, working, and going to school at the same time.
So it's a good time to get into computers.
I loved it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so
do you do anything with computers anymore other than just emails? And
No.
No.
No. Although, it's not directly related to computers, but I'm going to bridge here a little bit. I'm going to throw you off in terms of I work with Marist College.
Uh-huh.
And I work with Marist College in their environmental policy group and the computer science group to develop a program that's managing stormwater runoff off the Landsman Kill.
Okay.
And so because of the technology background that I have, it really is a great partnership with Marist and their capstone projects that they work on every year. And what we started out with, I thought it was going to be a 2-year. Now we're going into year 4 in terms of developing this model. And you can see the basis of it out on our villageofrhinebeck.org website. Go to the Marist, our page on Marist, and you can see how we're measuring and doing a predictive modeling for storms and to control flooding here in the village of Rhinebeck.
Wow. And in the Landsman Kill, this is part of sort of a source water protection plan to keep the Hudson cleaner.
So, yeah, it is one of the major streams that feeds into the Hudson.
Right.
Like many others, you have the Esopus and you have the Wallkill and so forth that are along there. But you're going to take me, give me a microphone and I'll talk, right?
I think we got you one.
So let's talk about, I don't know if many people know, but I started an organization myself and Dan Shapley from Riverkeeper 6 years ago in May, when I was first getting into politics and running. We had the barges parking on the river here in Rhinecliff, and I think
Right.
a lot of Rhinecliff residents knew that.
Yeah.
And so I was very concerned about protecting our water. So I met with Dan Shapley at Riverkeeper, didn't know him at the time, and we sat on the banks of the river, and that night we developed the concept of creating an organization that protects the drinking water in the Hudson River.
This is Hudson 7?
So this is now called the Hudson 7.
Okay.
So people don't realize 106,000 people right here, right around us, get their drinking water from the Hudson River.
Right.
And those 106,000 people, we have 5 water treatment plants that have to process that water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just interject a question, because I saw this on a video today, and it's fascinating how the water treatment plants work.
Yeah.
It's a multi-step process.
There's a lot that goes into it.
Can you summarize that for us?
Every process is different, whether you're a well or you're working on a river. River water, you got to get the settlement out of it, and then you got to treat the water, and you got to go through all these stages, and then chlorinate it, and then you put it in. We have a 2 million gallon tank up on Hiley Road that's our reservoir that then this gravity feeds into all of our distribution. So think about it. Here in Rhinecliff, we have the Village of Rhinebeck water treatment plant. It processes 400,000 gallons of water a day to pump up to the reservoir up on Hiley, and then gravity feeds all of that back into the village. And we do this 7 days a week.
And so is that the town's appetite for water, 400,000 gallons a day?
So it's the village's appetite and part of the town.
Oh.
So
Right, because many people have wells, I'm guessing.
Well, in the village, everybody is on water. But we also serve the hamlet of Rhinecliff for water, and developments like the gardens and Ferncliff and the new workforce housing development called Locust Hill will be on water. So we're starting to serve outside of the village. We serve a lot of areas within the town as well.
All right, I'm going to swerve to this. Locust Hill, is that going to happen? Workforce housing?
I hope so.
Yeah.
We just recently, at our last board meeting, one of the things you have to do with the developer, since they're in the town and we're in the village, you have to, that capacity, whether it's water or wastewater, you have to determine if you have enough capacity to handle an outside developer. And then you can't just automatically give that to an outside developer because the taxpayers and the ratepayers of the village paid for that. You then work out an agreement with the developer to connect. And so we just passed a resolution that we are willing to serve this new developer for Locust Hill. So
Wow.
water and wastewater they will get.
That's nice. So Locust Hill, this is a development opposite sort of the Star Library.
Correct, and it's in the town.
up
It's
on
on
the
the
hill.
border of the village, but it's on the town. It's in the town of Rhinebeck.
And how many units do they want to have?
So there's like 80 units. I forget the combination of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units that will go there.
So I'm guessing that'll be the biggest building, the biggest development in the town.
No, the gardens is much bigger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the gardens is twice.
But this is all in one building, or it's in
No,
a
it's
bunch
going
of
to
different...
be. There's going to be multiple buildings there
Okay.
in Locust Hill.
Huh.
And their demand, from a wastewater point is like 17,000 gallons a day. So that's what their demand to feed into our plant will be. And then they'll have an equal demand for water.
Right.
And we will provide that to them.
And is it usually like that? The waste and the water volumes are about the same?
Yeah, they become pretty much equal.
Yeah.
In terms of the demands.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I'm wondering how much your engineering background helps you understand things that are going on professionally now as mayor.
Well, as it related, I think my job comes to being a problem solver.
Right.
And when you're an engineer, you're really taking something and solving a problem.
Yeah.
Right. No matter what it is, you're going to have to figure out and come to a solution of what that problem is and then a recommendation of how to proceed. So I think engineering plays well into this job because it allows you to understand the concept, right, and working from a concept to a solution.
Right.
Same thing I just did with the Rhinebeck High School and the civics class up there.
And what was that?
So the civics class, the 7th and 8th grade under Henry Freisnet, developed, they had the civics class that broke them up into teams, and each team came up with a problem they wanted to solve. I was fortunate to work with a team of seven kids that wanted to put drinking water fountains in the village of Rhinebeck.
I like that idea.
How cool is that?
Is that feasible?
Well, yeah. The end result is we're doing it, right? So now these kids took a concept. From that concept of wanting to do something, they analyzed. I gave them a map of our transmission lines. They figured out where to place them based on the transmission line so they could get water to them, right? Because they'll be fed off of the village supplied drinking water.
Right.
They came up with a model of what they wanted to put in, which is a drinking, not just your standard drinking fountain. It'll have a water bottle filler, which is now,
Right.
you're now using plastic. Everybody has water bottles, right?
Yeah.
And so reusable water bottles, a big savings. Have a water bottle filler. It will have their standard fountain, and it will also have a dog bowl.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
sweet.
And so now they came up with that. And now they said, okay, the biggest thing is they had to learn that money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
And then here they are working with the mayor, and they go, what are you going to do? And I go, you're going to raise money. You guys got to go raise some money. How are you going to get this?
Love that.
And so they
Tough love from the mayor.
with a little bit of guidance, they wrote grants. They did a community push for community funding, and at last week's meeting, they gave us a check for $13,000 to buy a water fountain for the village of Rhinebeck, and I ordered it today. It'll be here in 3 weeks.
To start with one single water fountain.
They raised
And
13.
where will that be?
We're going to put it in the mini park over on North Park Road.
Okay. Over and where?
Off on North Park, I'll turn up into the high school.
Oh, okay. Right,
Right where our mini
Right,
park
right.
is. The second one, if they raise enough money, is going to go at Village Hall.
Okay.
Right on Center Street.
Right.
So it'll be closer to the town, to the
I
village.
love that. So this is a group of seven
Group of
seventh graders.
7th, 8th graders.
Right.
did it all.
Working
With
with
a-
Henry Frischknecht, who's just amazing.
Yep.
Amazing teacher there.
And all we had to do was guide them.
Right.
I was so fortunate to work with a great group of kids.
And I'm guessing they're going to stick together and sort of see this through until all the drinking fountains are installed.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the goal. They need to raise some more money, but maybe through grants and fundraising, they'll be able to do it.
Right.
And so hopefully by fall, we're going to have a groundbreaking ceremony with the first one.
Love that so much. And what kinds of places do they go to get money for this? To get the grants?
Well, they went to the Rhinebeck Science Foundation, number one, who gave them the first grant. And they also wrote a grant application for Frost, the Frost Foundation.
Right.
So hopefully that will come through. Yeah. And the fairgrounds, I spoke that I work with Andy. He loved the idea. He's putting them in on the fairgrounds now.
Who?
Andy Imparati,
Okay.
the CEO for the Dutchess County Fairgrounds.
Uh-huh.
He's doing the same type of water fountain on the fairgrounds, and he through the fairgrounds, gave the kids a donation.
Love that.
Think about it.
And,
So there's a community coming together.
now, supposing somebody listening wants to donate to this beautiful project, how would they do that?
So there's two ways. One is the kids developed a QR code, which they published. And so if you go on to, and they're using the Rhinebeck Rotary organization to help collect the money, because you got to collect it through a 501c3. And, so you can go to Rhinebeck Rotary homepage, and there'll be a link to a QR code to be able to do it. You can go to the village website and to the project. There's a QR code, and you click on that QR code and make your donation. Or you can send them directly to the village of Rhinebeck and in care of the drinking water fountain project.
That's just so wonderful when sort of the citizens are getting involved and like really helping out.
But the kids drove it. Think about it.
And, yeah, I love that. Yeah, what I think about when I think about those kids is the effect this is going to have on them as they move through their lives. Like, well, we can do that.
Yeah.
Why not?
They've done it.
We got an idea. Yeah, we can do it, which is exactly the kind of kid you want to raise.
Yeah. So kudos to them. Kudos to Henry, and kudos to the kids. Cause they really. But
and kudos to you.
This gets back to how we have to work in the community and what I believe we need to do. You need to get out. You need to work with the organizations. You need to work with people. You need to help solve problems.
Right.
That's where we started, solving a problem.
Right. Amazing. So, are there other cases of sort of citizen initiated and advanced initiatives?
Well, maybe not citizen, but advanced. Have you heard about our autism supportive community?
No.
You know that the village of Rhinebeck is the only village in the Northeast that is a autism supportive community.
What does that mean?
So that means that what we've done, we partnered with the Anderson Center to give us training on, actually it was their idea. They came to the village and said, we work with a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals, but we've never worked with community. How can we make the village of Rhinebeck an autism supportive community? So I formed a village sanctioned committee, brought in people, and we had at one time 20 people working with us. And our job was to go out and educate and train businesses on how to be supportive for people who are on the spectrum.
Right.
And today, it used to be 1 in 54. Today, it's 1 in 36 is on the spectrum. And if you think about what we can do, not only are you giving people who are on the spectrum a place that they know where they can walk into a store, and they know that store, because the store is going to have a decal on the door or the window saying they're an autism supportive member.
What does that decal look like?
It's a brown circular blue decal, and it says
Okay.
autism supportive community member on it.
Love
It
that.
stands out very well. And that means that store has done one thing. The program started out with hashtag one thing. Just do one thing to support people on the spectrum. Turn the lights down low. Bring the music down low. Make the line quick. Give them a fast pass to be able to get seated at a restaurant. Whatever it is, sign up to do that. And 60% of the businesses in the village of Rhinebeck signed up to do it like that.
Love that.
And they're doing it. And now we're taking it to the next level. Not only now we're training staff at the businesses so that they can know how to work better with people. And then the goal here is to hire. If you think 1 in 36, look at that workforce that is available of people that are very dedicated on doing their jobs and can do it, because if you met one person autism, you met one person, because that's why it's a spectrum.
Right.
Now these businesses can hire somebody. Right. And that's our goal, is to make it so that they can hire. So we're still running. We're 4 years now into running this program, and we're moving a long way. And thanks to Thomas Thompson Trust for giving us matching grants, and we raise the money to be able to do these programs.
They're another amazing organization, the Thomas Thompson Trust, which is up in Boston. They support Rhinebeck and
Brattleboro.
Something like, Brattleboro, Vermont.
Yep, the only two places.
And that's it. I love that. And they're so good helping this community.
This is the second grant we've got from them for this project.
That's wonderful.
And that's how much they believe in it as well.
Right. So back to this autism thing, I'm thinking about shopkeepers. I mean, how would they recognize when somebody comes in that they're autistic?
You don't really know, and that's the key about it.
Right.
But let's just say you're at the checkout, and you have a young child that's having issues. A lot of these shopkeepers now have sensory kits that they can use to give. They recognize that whether the child or even an adult is having some issues. These sensory kits are made specifically for people on the spectrum, that there's tactile kind of stuff, or headphones if the noise is loud, that kind of stuff that they can give them so that you can continue to do your checkout, or you can enjoy your meal, or you can do whatever. And so we made these sensory kits available to everybody and passed them out.
And did you make the kits, or do they come
No, we put them together through the help of Anderson to define what should be in them.
This is just the most beautiful story. I love this so much.
Yeah.
What's in the kit? Like
we're doing great things here.
Fidget spinner, like an eye covering thing? And
No. Headphones to be able to do that. But the rest are almost tactile kind of things. And that's what really helps. And now all of our police cars have them.
Right.
And so do our fire trucks, because you never know. You pull up onto a scene and there could be an issue, and now every one of our cars have these sensory kits in them.
And I'm guessing all of the police and the Rhinebeck force have been trained.
Yes, they've been
at least
trained
somewhat on how to recognize when somebody's having a bad episode because of their autism.
And same as our village staff if they come into Village Hall.
Right. So you have the blue circle decal on the Village Hall as well.
Right. So great things. Autism supportive. The Maris thing, the Hudson 7, the partnerships that we have with the community, working with the Chamber of Commerce and our businesses. This is why I love my job.
All right, listen, you can't recap. We still have another 20 minutes to go.
Yeah, good. Well, let's keep going.
Let me ask about
Give me a microphone. I won't stop.
Yeah, let me ask about Dave's Tree Service. You mentioned autism, and they've got these trucks everywhere, and they all say autism support.
Yeah, he's a huge supporter.
Yeah, it's really lovely.
Yep.
I mean, because you think about tree guys and tree services, and they're rough and tumble, and
and and I don't want to get into personal, but his wife was our first chairman of the committee as well.
So
because they're close,
wonderful.
They're close to being. They understand the issues associated with autism.
Right. They seem to be really super helpful.
And they're community oriented. They're community people.
Yeah. That's good. Well, kudos to them too.
Yeah.
All right. So I mentioned to you before we went on the air that I send out texts to people who I think we would know in common, saying, "Hey, Kerry Bassett's coming on. Do you have any stuff for him?" And there's so many. I've never gotten so many replies as with you, and I want to
the good, the bad, and the ugly, huh?
They're all good, really. One of them, and I was really curious about this. What's going on with the Eveready Diner?
Well, that's in the town. Yeah, so the village line.
Right.
The village line is right at the edge of between the mobile and part of the parking lot. So that's all in the. That's all
between
in the town.
The mobile and the old tack shop.
I'd love to see something happen to that, but it's out of my domain.
But any idea what's going on?
Nope. No. Yeah.
All right, good. What about speeding? Somebody from South Parsonage there writes in about speeding. What can the village do to keep people from zoom? I live on South Street.
Yep.
People zoom down there like mad,
like crazy, and we have this.
And the state troopers are just about the worst of them.
Yeah, well, and you have one state trooper who parks on that little annex of North Parsonage to catch people running a stop sign. So that's good.
Yeah.
Speeding exists everywhere in the village of Rhinebeck, and I think and no matter where you go, you're going to have this problem. And the biggest thing you can do is enforcement, and that's what we try to do. We try to advertise. You saw our Village of Rhinebeck radar sign coming into the hamlet of Rhinecliff. That's the villages.
Is that effective? Are those things effective?
Yes, it does. And we've put several of them in the village, one on Montgomery Street and one on Knollwood. And, it's proven that if people see this, they slow down.
Right.
And they keep track. They keep a record of how many cars and what speed they're going. So
they do?
Yeah.
I didn't know the things did that.
So we can analyze if there's a problem or not, on those roads.
Right.
In the same way with our portable sign, we can analyze the data and see if there's a problem and when there is. But speeding, yes, is a concern. So you ask, what are we going to do? First off, people think the answer is stop signs. right? Put in more stop signs, and that'll make people control. Actually, it's illegal to put a stop sign in as a speed control device. You just can't do it.
Right.
Your stop signs are for safety and intersections and that kind of stuff, but you can't use them as a speed control device. So long term, the state passed a law that now allows us to lower the speed limit in villages and cities, which we were never allowed to do. The speed limit with 30 was set by the state, not set by us.
Right. Is 25 right in the village?
No, it's 30.
It is.
It's 30 unless you're in a school zone, where there's 25 or 15 out of school. But that's set by the state. Now the state has lowered it to 25. So even though they made all this announcement how good you do it, but to do an area change, they haven't told us what the rules are to be able to do that yet. So we're anxious to lower the speed limit to 25 in the village of Rhinebeck, and get that notice out to everybody to try to attempt to get people to slow down as well as, like I said, do more active participation in terms of patrolling and using our speed control radar to be able to warn people.
Right. Educate them that they're speeding. I mean, I see that thing, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know it was going 75 or even 36,
Yeah.
So you say patrol. How many police officers are on full-time or part-time in the village?
So we have no full-time police officers.
Oh,
at all.
Really?
And these are these are village police officers. We don't service the town of Rhinebeck. We service the village of Rhinebeck, but we do contract to the town for specific shift coverage to help them out.
Shift coverage.
Yeah.
And apart from that, it's the state police?
It's county and state police.
County and state.
In the town. But back to your question, we have 15 part-time police officers that have full-time jobs and or whatever, and they're required to do 4 to 6 shifts a month, put in a minimum of 18 hours to a month, and we stagger them, and they're great. A lot of them live here in the town, in the village. They know the village and town very well,
right?
And that's how we develop a monthly schedule for these officers.
And has it always been 100% part-time?
Always.
So interesting.
Yep. Yep.
And why would it be that way?
Well, there's a lot of advantages to being part-time. To get a full-time police officer and pay him in the village, it would cost a lot more. And then you're competing with other bigger places that are full-time. We're fortunate that we have a great workforce of firemen that, we have firemen that work for the city of Kingston. Their shift schedules allow them to take on other opportunities. So we have several firemen that work for us. We have contractors that, were able to work an evening shift or whatever as well. So it's an effective way to be able to manage your costs as well as provide a very good police force and not have to compete with the larger municipalities.
Right. And is there a chief of police?
Yeah, we have a chief of police, a sergeant Peter Dunn, and he's been there for 21 years now.
Wow.
As a police officer and officer in charge of our police department. But effectively, I'm the police commissioner.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
That's nice.
God love it.
Commissioner Gordon sending up the bat signal. Okay, I wanted to ask this other question, but now it's gone. Oh, yeah. Do you get many complaints about police in the village?
No.
We've
had a few.
Yeah.
Right. And, whether it's been as a result of a traffic stop or the handling of an incident, but they're very few and far between. And we're really very, very, very proud of our police department.
And if you're the commissioner, then you're the one sort of adjudicating these complaints.
Yes, absolutely.
And
unless I delegate it.
Smart. And are there, are there disciplinary actions? I mean, the police force seems pretty good, and it seems like a pretty mellow town, but
it depends on what's happening, right?
Right.
And all that stuff is foilable. So anybody who wants the information, it's there.
All the stuff is what?
Foilable, which
right.
means that you can come and get the freedom of information.
Right.
You can come and get that information, and that's on file.
And do people do that very often?
Yes. We have people foil us all the time.
Really?
Yes.
All right. And and where would I go to do that or fill out the?
You just come to the village office and you can go online. You can come and see the clerk. You can send an email.
I want to know. I want some dirt on Gary Bassett.
There you
I fill
go.
out the form. And
Foil me.
And then foil me. I love that challenge. Go on, foil me.
Yeah.
And do you get not police, but just in general, do you get many complaints? Do people call you with like crazy complaints, like there's too many chipmunks, or?
Do you want to hear the wildest one?
Yeah.
All right. So one time I had a person, yet not to be named, but called me about a complaint, and the complaint was the meat was being cut too thick at Tops Market. And I had to solve that problem.
So they called the mayor.
Yes.
And
Tops is in the town, but this person was very adamant that I needed to solve this problem.
Right.
But, I'm making.
But why didn't you tell them to just call Spinzia?
That's the extreme.
Yeah.
Right. That's the extreme, because I take complaints seriously. I don't want to poo-poo this here.
All right. So what you do?
When somebody makes a complaint, I will follow up. I will do the investigation. I will come to an end result and close it out with everybody.
So you went to Tops, bought some steaks, took them home, grilled them, ate them, and called the person back and said, no, they're thick
fine.
enough.
Yeah, they're fine.
But you did something. I'm kidding. But if you say you follow through on them.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely.
Did you call Tops and see what the standard?
No, in this case, I didn't. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I worked with the individual to make sure that they understood how to go about and get the answer that they needed.
Right.
I really didn't feel this was part of the issue
under
for the
village purview of the village mayor.
Right. But if there's a valid complaint in the village, no matter what it is, like I said, we have a complaint form online. You can submit it anonymously or you can sign it either way. And so, it's there. We're open.
Right.
We're not hiding anything.
And did you get complaints about the they're not called gypsy moth anymore, the moth infestation last week?
The spongy moth.
Spongy moth. Thank you.
Spongy moth. Yeah. Not so much complaint, but more questions. And then I don't know if you're on our distribution list, but if you're not, go to the villageofrhinebeck.org website and sign up for the contact list. And like last week, we sent out information about what to do and how to handle the spongy moth.
Right.
Right. So, we were able to, we have a great tree commission, and the tree commission said that cares about our trees created this report, and we made it public to everybody. So that goes out onto our website, goes out to our email distribution list, and out onto our Facebook page.
Right. So yours is a part-time job.
Yep.
Though I find it very easy to imagine that it's full-time hours.
It can be.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. You can make it what you want to make it. Mm-hmm. You can define how many hours you want to work or what you want to do. I am one of those people where as my wife will say, I put too much time in most of the time, for a part-time job. But when you love what you do, you're going to do it.
Right. Also, and if you love the place that you're serving, you don't want to just do a half-assed job or just some of the things. You want to take care of it. So you've got staff, presumably.
Yeah. We have a modest staff for the village of Rhinebeck. Right. And it covers the key areas that we need. Because you got to think about it. As a difference between a village and a town, we have a police department that I talked about. We have a fire department. That's a village fire department. We have a water department, we have a wastewater department, and we have a highway department. And so all of these functions need to come together and work.
Right.
And then we hire the staff to be able to manage them.
So highway department, it's the highway department's just village?
The town has their own highway. We have our highway department as well.
Okay. Which one is not getting the composting place?
That's us. That's the village. That was a loaded question.
You brought up the highway department.
Yeah, but when you say we're not going to do it at the highway facility.
Yes.
So to be very clear, we wanted to do it there. It was an 8-acre site.
I met one of the neighbors last week.
The residents, didn't think it belonged there. And at the end of the day, I pulled the plug and said I won't do it there.
Right.
And so I made the decision to pull the plug.
Right.
And now we're looking for alternatives.
And I read the coverage, and it sounded like you pulled the plug because the writing was on the wall, and there was no way it was going to happen there.
Well, why fight?
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the
Right.
day, you know, let's find an alternative to make it work.
And the town, the transfer station is no longer.
We took we did the study for the town.
It's too bad. That seemed like it.
And presented it to the town to make, you know, and they agreed that the transfer station is not the right facility economically or location wise. It has wetlands
Right.
all around it. It doesn't work. And the cost of staffing that up and buying equipment and everything made it economically unfeasible.
Right. And I read somewhere, I think it was the Hudson Valley Pilot, our fabulous new local newspaper, that there was some farmland around somewhere that was being considered.
Yeah, we're considering and looking at seeing if we can establish an enterprise with some local farmer who would like to do composting.
Right. And is this a job where you working with the town a lot?
Well, if that farm is in the town, yes, we would work with the town, and we would always wanted the town to be a participant in our compost,
Right.
right? And it's up to them to decide if they want to be a participant,
Right.
and you know, whatever mechanism that ends up being, that's their choice. But we would love to have a compost facility that's open for everyone and not restrictive,
Right.
because that's the way it works well.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of how do we work together.
Right. Huh. Well, I hope that works out. I mean,
I do too.
I don't see any reason
know,
not to compost.
I've been on this for 5 years. I started the environmental committee over 5 years ago, and we're very fortunate now to have Trustee Bertozzi, who's taken the lead, who's an excellent environmentalist.
She's amazing. She's a force of nature, like
And-
Henry Frischknecht.
Yeah, and so we're fortunate to have her to take over the reins of what I was doing in the environmental, but she picked up and has continued to work on the compost, and
Right.
hopefully we'll get there.
So at some point, I'm just thinking about your environmental activism.
I am.
At some point, you worked for a solar power company.
Yep.
And
After my IBM career, I went in to work with a local solar company. Yep.
And it's now called SunCommon.
It's now called SunCommon.
Right, which is great. I love their, you know, the cars and their advertising, marketing, all the stuff I get on social media. It's really nice. And you worked there for a long time.
I was there almost 14 years.
Right.
Over 14 years. And when I joined, there was a very small group, a band of 5, and they needed engineering support. And from that engineering, I was able to, you know, help them build an engineering department and staff that up and get it organized so that we were doing not only residential but commercial systems and designing them
Right.
and providing to thousands of customers now.
And during that era, did you sort of shift and become a lot more sort of environmentally conscious?
No, I think this is in my DNA. Being born and raised on a farm, right, in central Pennsylvania, and having that farmer background, to me, the land is precious. And being an environmentalist, I think comes from my mother and father.
Were they farmers?
Yes. Yeah, I was born and raised on the farm.
And you said it was in Danville, Pennsylvania.
Danville, Pennsylvania. It's the middle of Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And how far from the Pennsylvania, the throughway, the road I take to cross Pennsylvania?
80, if you're going across
80.
80, Danville's an exit off of 80, and then we had a 100-acre farm outside of Danville.
And what'd you all grow?
Everything.
Every
You name it. We didn't leave the farm. Everything we ate, everything we did, we got off the farm.
But isn't that unusual? Don't most farms sort of specialize in like soy or corn or lettuce or whatever?
The bigger farms. We're talking 100 acres. And, you know, this had, you know, we had beef cattle, we had milk cattle, we had chickens, we had big, huge vegetable gardens, we had orchards, and so, you know, Sunday afternoon, my parents made us turn the crank to make our own butter. So come on.
Right.
But this is what led me into, I think, being Hudson 7. And, you know, we deviated from that a little bit, but that Hudson 7 and protecting the drinking water here and that part of it, because the Hudson 7 serves a unique role. Sorry, I'm bridging a little bit.
No,
now,
please.
But Hudson 7 sits in between the Department of Health, who manages what your drinking water looks like coming out of the plant, and the DEC, who does all the permitting. But nobody was sitting in the middle protecting the river and protecting the drinking water. And that's where we came in and filled that void And now we've, over the course of 6 years now that we put it together, and I've been chairing that organization since, we've done some great things in terms of these December's Christmas 21 storm where the SOPAS was dumping silt. We now have New York City considering how they manage the reservoir, its impact on the drinking water, which was never done before. Think about it. New York City has to think about our drinking water. Not their drinking water. They have to think about our drinking water. That's key.
And that was a Hudson 7.
We drove that. The coal tar releases that were dumped in the 60s down in Poughkeepsie.
Oof.
We've been working with them, Central Hudson, and actually got them to change their plan so that they weren't polluting the river in the process of removing 7 acres of coal tar that are down there.
Right.
Champlain Hudson Power Express. Have you heard of that?
No.
That's the cable that's providing power from Canada to New York City.
Oh, right.
Remember?
Yeah.
Think about it. They're going to lay this cable in the river in a trench that's 2 feet wide, 7 feet deep. And they're going to dig this trench and stir up everything, right? First off, let me say, we don't want that cable in the river. But being the fact person that I am and the engineering background, I said, we need to understand this. We spent 2.5 years working with the developers of Champlain Hudson Power Express, TDI, and we made them prove that their concept would work and do a pilot so that we knew that our water plants wouldn't be impacted when they did this drenching.
Well, how can that happen? That they can put that in and not impact the water?
Well, they have what's called a jet plow. And to make it very simple, this jet plow makes this trench, but it has air jets on the outside of it that puts all the debris back into the hole. So the question was how much of that sediment was going to be released into the river so that it would impact our drinking water.
Right.
And so we made them run a pilot test and actually do it and demonstrate to us that it would work. And we had them analyze all of the chemicals that could have been produced, everything that's in the river, to make sure that it wouldn't impact our drinking water.
Amazing.
But I don't want it in the river, but we're going to have it. And if we're going to have it, we're going to make them work with us. So
it's a done deal. It's going to be there.
Yeah. It's going to, unless something else changes.
And you're accepting that and working hard to make sure that it does the least amount of damage.
Now they have to work with us. We got state level recognition for the work that we're doing on filling this void.
And so where does the funding for Hudson 7 come from?
Right now, for the last 5 years, it's been brute force work by people we know.
Right.
And engineering. So it's been volunteer pro bono work by engineers and advisors and all that kind of stuff.
And somebody who built a nice website.
And we built a website. But guess what? We're going public. We're going to become a 501c3 hopefully within the next month. And we have funding we've arrangements with not only the county of Dutchess and Ulster, but with the 7 municipalities to now help fund this. And we're going to be a 501c3. And now we'll be able to hire and raise money and do more than what we've been doing.
And that website is Hudson7.org. Hudson7.org.
Yeah, the number 7, Hudson and the number 7.org.
And people could go there and donate.
Go check it out.
The work is spectacular. And, I'm looking at that. I'm thinking, what a legacy you're leaving. It's just magnificent. And I'm going to just close it out now because we're out of time. Thank you again for being here. And thank you even more for your beautiful service to our community.
Oh, thank you. I love it. And thank you for having me on the air.
Yeah. Everybody have a great Friday and a fabulous weekend. Good night.
Good night.